Yes, yes.
You can admit everyone, Jaideep.
Yes, please go ahead.
Good evening and welcome everyone. Once again, I welcome you on behalf of Education USA to one of the other series session on Education USA Discovery. We are beginning the session very shortly. Before that, I would request all of you who have entered into the meeting, kindly introduce yourself with your name, what you are, a student or a counselor or a parent, and where are you from. That gives us an idea about who you are. Please use the headphones or earphones for a better and enhanced audio quality. You can type in your questions in the chat box, which is down there. Just for your information that we are also live on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages. The page names are Education USA India. So you can definitely watch out this session live on these channels. You can also watch the video again if you want for your future reference. All these channels, the Facebook and the YouTube, will have the recording of these sessions. So you can go back to these pages and definitely you can check out if you want this session to be shown again. Before we go ahead, let me introduce what is Education USA. So Education USA is supported by the US State Department, and it's a network of advising centers across the world. Currently, there are 430 plus centers in 170 plus countries. The mandate of these centers are to provide you the accurate, comprehensive, current, and unbiased information when it comes to studying in the United States. In India, there are 7 centers currently, which are located in Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, and New Delhi. I am Janet Turner, and I am from the Education USA Ahmedabad Center. We believe that if you want to study in this state, these are the basic 5 steps that you should keep in mind, which will need your time and a proper research. Starting from the step first, this is research your options. Finance your studies, complete your applications, apply for your student visa, and prepare yourself for a pre-departure. To connect with the Education USA centers, these are the various ways that you can get connected to us. The most handy thing that you can find out is the Education USA India app, which is both Android and iOS friendly app. You can download it on your mobile, and you can also get information on studying in the United States. There is a chatbot who can help you with all your questions related to US studies. You can also follow our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. The other way to get in touch with us is you can sign up yourself with the Education USA update by following this link. You can also follow our events, which are there on the India calendar. We have a toll-free line, which is Monday to Friday, 10 to 5 p.m. You can dial in and you can get your queries answered. Don't miss out the free virtual sessions on the 5 steps, which I just mentioned to you for US studies, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesdays and Thursday. The links to join these sessions are mentioned right here. We'll post the links later in the chat box for your reference. You can also get the free virtual specialized information sessions like these, which we are currently having, which will help you for the further process with US university representatives. We are also having individual advising membership. You can get in touch with the different centers if you are interested in. These are the center details which are there in India: Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, and New Delhi. Please reach out to the individual centers to know more about their working hours. So here we are. This is the Discovery series, as I talked about, and we are done with these all sessions. Today is the session on teacher to leader, how a major in education can nurture you. This is the third last session on the series. And let me introduce you to our panelists. So we have with us Dr. Elizabeth from the University of South Florida. We have Dr. Susan Woodhouse, who is from Lehigh University College of Education. And we have Dr. Nathan Myers, who is from Youngstown State University. I welcome all of you for the session. Thank you so much for spending the time. It is great having all of you here. So without spending much of our time, I would request Susan to go ahead and share her screen for the further presentation. Over to you, Susan.
Okay. Okay, let's see. And okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I am here to talk with you about graduate programs in education and the many different kinds of possible careers that can come from graduate study in a college of education. My name is Susan Woodhouse, and I'm a associate professor in counseling psychology at Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is just north of Philadelphia. Okay. So I wanted to talk today about graduate study in education. Many people are aware that you can go to college of education and learn how to become a teacher, and of course that is true everywhere. You can learn to become a teacher, but there are also a number of careers that people may not really be aware of that are possible in a college of education. So I wanted to talk to you about the opportunities that are available through getting a master's degree or a doctoral degree through a college of education. So a master's degree is typically about a 2-year program, and it can lead to a career in education or professional practice. And a doctoral degree program, or PhD, or sometimes EDD, is a longer 5 to 6 year program, and it leads to a career that could be either in research or in professional practice. So we have at Lehigh University, we have 6 programs that lead to a number of different careers. And of course, we have teacher education, which was very typical at a college of education. But we also have a number of other programs that you may not be aware of, which would include special education, educational technology or instructional technology, educational leadership, school psychology, and counseling psychology. And what I will be doing is talking about each of these programs, or what the focus of each program is, and some of the careers, and including some profiles of alumni, just to give you an idea of what is possible. So I'll start with talking about special education. Education has been moving increasingly towards inclusive classrooms and educating children with a broad range of abilities together, including children who have learning disabilities, mental disabilities, emotional disabilities, or physical disabilities. And within the special education program here at Lehigh, we have a couple of resources that are a part of how we train and do research. One is the Autism Center, which provides state-of-the-art treatment for children with autism, and also does research on how to best intervene for children with autism. And we also have a university school that's called Centennial School, which is a school that serves children from the elementary school all the way through high school. And it's for children with challenging behaviors. So each child in the school has an individualized education plan. And it's also a training school where many of our students will also get training on state-of-the-art practice, working with children with challenging behaviors, and using positive behavioral supports throughout the entire school. See if I can get this slide to move. Okay, whoops, I went too far that time. Let me see if I can, oops. So just to give you a picture of some of the alumni that we have in special education, this is our master's in special education. There is also a doctoral degree in special education. With the doctoral degree, it would allow you to do research in special education. But just to give you a sense of some of our alumni in with the master's in special education, we'll start with Beth Custer. She is a district level special education behavioral support coach for a school district in working with teachers, administrators, and families to support students who exhibit challenging behaviors. Andrew McCool is a supervisor at a human service organization for adults with intellectual disabilities. And Kristen Smith is a teaching associate at the Centennial School of Lehigh University, and she works in the middle school program. And here we just have a photo of the Centennial School, so you can see what that school is like. So this just gives you a view of some of the variety of careers that, that you could have with a master's in special education. Next, I'll be talking about our program in instructional technology. So this program is focused on, it's all about how to best integrate technology into education. So how to enhance education by integrating technology into teaching and learning. For example, a really great application of this kind of work would be, what would be our best practices in online learning? How can we make online learning more compelling and useful for children and adults, actually. Another use would be thinking about how to use technology in museum and how to enhance learning as people move through a museum. For example, using interactive technology to learn about what's being observed there. Another area that we work on in our program is using geospatial technologies to enhance learning. So for example, curriculum design using GIS and Google Earth as learning technologies to promote spatial thinking and reasoning skills with learners, or using geospatial technologies to investigate environmental issues. So just to give you a couple of examples there. And here are some alumni from the instructional technology program, just to give you a sense of the wide range of careers that are possible in this area. So Dr. Farah Valera teaches instructional design and technology courses in our College of Education here at Lehigh University. So she has been, as we faculty members have had to switch very quickly into teaching online, she has helped us get ready to use all different kinds of technology to enhance the teaching that we do. Dr. Dan Pennebaker is a part of a team that developed an interactive iPad game, and he's currently creating a web-based curriculum that uses a database of users to create an effective online learning environment. Sarah Heinzelman is a lead teacher at the Centennial School at Lehigh University, and recently her students participated in a state technology conference where they were featured as a part of a student showcase. And Dr. Denise Bressler, she built a series of mobile science games called School Scene, and it's School Scene Investigators, which is to engage learners through feelings of flow and successful collaboration in a learning game type of situation. Oops. I went too far again. I could figure out, oh, there we go, okay. Another career that's possible or program that's available would be educational leadership. For example, if you were interested in becoming a director of curriculum and instruction at a school, or if you were interested in becoming a school principal, or learning how to become a superintendent of schools, this would be the program that might be of interest to you. And at Lehigh, we have both a national and regional focus or an international school leadership focus. And so let me show you some of the alumni from who come from Lehigh. So Dr. Bridget McConnell earned a PhD at Lehigh, and she's now superintendent of the Palisade School District. And she served as the assistant superintendent responsible for curriculum, assessment, and instruction prior to becoming assuming the superintendent's position. Dr. Joseph Roy is currently the superintendent of schools at the Bethlehem Area School District, which is the 6th largest school district in Pennsylvania. And Dr. Samuel Verano has been the principal at Souderton Area High School, which is a 9th through 12th grade school in the Souderton Area School District for the past 9 years. And Dr. Rachel Haller is a director of educational programs for the Quakertown Community School District in Quakertown, Pennsylvania. And she works with curricular areas of math, science, social studies, health, physical education, and the practical arts such as business and information technology. So this gives you a picture of some of the wide range of careers that would be available to you through the Educational Leadership Program. School psychology is another area that would be open. And in school psychology, there are 2 kinds of degrees that would be available. You could get a PhD, which would allow you to become a school psychologist or a pediatric school psychologist in schools, healthcare settings, or in community organizations. It's also possible to get a master's level training as a school psychologist, which is the EDS, which is to become an educational specialist. And these are school-based practitioners that work within the schools in many of the same school psychology areas. Oops. Apologize for this. And finally, counseling psychology is another area that's available to you. I myself am a counseling psychologist, and I teach in our counseling psychology programs. You can earn a master's in counseling psychology within the counseling psychology program. We have 3 different master's degrees at Lehigh University. The first one is in counseling and human services. And this is a 60 credit program that prepares you to become a licensed professional counselor. So there are many settings that one can work as a licensed professional counselor, working in the community, or work, for example, in an agency or being in private practice in many states. We also have a school counseling program, which is to work in a school setting, working with children in schools. And we also have an international school counseling program, which prepares people to work as a school counselor in the international schools. A PhD in counseling psychology would allow you to become a licensed psychologist. And you could work in private practice or in a university counseling center setting. We also have graduates that work in hospitals or in the Veterans Administration. We now are beginning to have students who are in integrated healthcare, so integrating psychology within healthcare. You can also become involved in career counseling. And of course, as with all of the PhD programs that we have, you can become a researcher. I myself am a researcher. I do research on the development of young children's attachment and I study parents and how to intervene with parents and helping parents to be better parents to help their children have better outcomes. So there are many different possible careers. So let me show you some of our alumni in counseling psychology, just to give you a picture of some of the careers that are possible. We have a recent graduate of ours, Dr. David Wynn. He's currently a licensed psychologist in private practice in Massachusetts. One of our graduates from our school counseling program, Madhuri Deshmukh, has a master's as a school counselor, and she is currently working as a school counselor at the American Academy in Colorado in the United States. I'll talk about another student of mine, Dr. Maria Lauer. She is currently a psychologist at Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C. She focuses on integrated healthcare and working with children there. And Dr. Stephanie Kodas is a psychologist in private practice in New York, in the USA. She has worked in university counseling centers, but is currently in private practice. So this gives you a picture of the variety of careers. I think most people know that you can become a teacher, and there are many rewarding careers within teaching, but there are also many other careers that you can pursue through a college of education career. Oops, that's what I meant to. So many different careers, and I wanted to help you become aware of some of the possibilities that might be open to you. And getting into graduate school is very much like getting into undergraduate school, but you just need to do an online application, which includes an essay. And of course, it's very much about matching with the program, getting letters of recommendation, an undergraduate GPA of 3.0 or higher on a 4-point scale. You'd need transcripts, and of course, transcripts from institutions outside of the United States would require evaluation. So for example, we accept evaluations from companies that are current members of the National Association of Credential Evaluation Services. Test scores would only be required, the GRE is only required for PhD and EDS students. The GRE scores are being waived for this year because of the coronavirus pandemic. And the GRE is not required for Masters of Education studies. So I really wanted to mention that. Sometimes students are concerned about whether they need to take the GRE, and for master's study, you do not need to take it. The TOEFL is required for graduate applicants who are non-native speakers of English, and students are required to take the TOEFL internet-based test or the IELTS test. Now, the TOEFL requirement may be waived if the applicant has graduated from a US institution within the past couple of years. So that is my presentation. So let me stop sharing my screen.
Yes, Nathan, over to you.
Yes. Let me share this. Sure.
Are you able to share your screen, Nathan?
No, it says it. Let me see. Oh, yes, I think so now. I had some setting problem. Okay, thank you for the very complete introduction to the different kinds and types of education programs, Susan. My name is Dr. Nate Myers. I am Associate Provost for International Initiatives at Youngstown State University. And I'm also an education professor. I spent the first 10, 11 years of my professional life teaching teachers. And before that, I was a history teacher in a middle school. So that's a little bit about my background. So I know this journey that that a lot of people take. The only thing I would like to add in terms of the different types of programs you may consider, quite often there are also programs in something called higher education or education policy, at the master's or PhD level. And those are great programs also to get jobs in OPTs and everything. So I've tried to put together some helpful advice on preparing a successful university application for education majors and while maximizing your scholarship potential, because even though we may want to study overseas, we would also like to get as much money as possible while doing so. So the first question I would ask is about deadlines, and that's the first thing you need to clarify. When is the deadline? Is there a separate deadline for application or scholarship? Are they the same deadline? So no matter where you are considering, you need to know what those deadlines are. And then, of course, once you know the deadline, then you know at least when you have to apply, the latest time you have to apply. But it doesn't mean that you should wait until the last deadline to apply. So the question I always get, does it matter? And I always say, yes, it does. No matter the institutional level, scholarship funds will typically run out. Spaces in the seats can also run out as well, depending on the institution. So, for instance, at my school, Youngstown State, we have a honors college scholarship, and the deadline for the honors college scholarship is February 1st. And so what happens is, in September, we start with a big pile of money. And we start spending that money by making scholarship offers to people. And by February, the pile is very small. And will we make some offers past the deadline? Probably. But will we make any offers in May? Probably not. So I think it does matter that when you apply, the earlier you apply, I think that the less pressure the scholarship awarding committee feels to make the right decision. And if you look pretty good, chances are you're probably going to get an honors college scholarship, for instance. So what should I do? So I would apply early. I would also apply to more than one university. I think the best advice that I always give applicants is to apply to 3 if you can. Get your top choice, your dream school. Apply to one that you can get into and you can afford if you manage financially. And then maybe throw a second one in. A university you wouldn't also mind going to, location you like, but one that is maybe a little more selective. So typically that's how applicants or my advice to strategize for applying to where. The second thing we would want to mention is documents. So you're going to pay attention. You need to pay close attention to the original document requirements. Do they require, physical mailings? Very few institutions actually require the physical document now. Most of them will, like YSU, will admit conditionally on the basis of a scan. So you would upload a scan of your original document to the secure site. And what happens is, then when you show up for orientation, you actually bring that sealed document from your university and we match it, right? And of course, they better match or there's a big problem. Thankfully, in the 7 years I've been doing this, we haven't had any issues like this. They've always matched. So also, if scans are acceptable, what are the resolution requirements? Universities will publish those. Sometimes an applicant will take out their iPhone 5 and try to take a picture of their transcript, and you can see maybe their cat is sitting, beside the transcript, and they have some coffee on the other side, and it's not a good look for you. It's not professional, right? So have it scanned, meet the resolution requirements of the university, and then of course, how and when should you produce your originals? Some universities actually will require a mailing as a follow-up. Again, we would just require the applicant to show up with those documents in a sealed envelope from the university with the university stamp across the envelope. Now, and for our education majors, in terms of the official documents we would require your official transcripts, and we'd also require your school leaving certificate or a copy of your diploma. And those are the 2 things we're looking for. You want to make sure your official scores are delivered to your colleges by the deadline. And typically, all of those deliveries happen electronically now. But obviously, take your TOEFL, IELTS, SAT, GRE, take those early. Ask about test requirements. It's good to know Lehigh does not require GRE. We would for Masters of Education. Different schools have different requirements. So make sure you clarify if there is a GRE required. If so, do they have a minimum score? Our College of Education does require GRE for the master's degree, but they do not publish a minimum score. I guess, that gives them some flexibility. If it's too low, perhaps, they'll make different kinds of decisions. So some questions to ask if I were you. If I were an applicant applying to an American university, I would want to know, how are the scholarships awarded? Are they awarded based on GPA? Is it guaranteed? If I apply, is that the same as a scholarship application? Will you consider me automatically? Do I have to do anything else? Or is there an essay requirement? Like, for instance, I mentioned our honors college at the undergraduate level, the bachelor's level, they do require an essay at the bachelor's level. And so that, we're going to talk about the essay in the next slide, but is there an essay? We require essay for bachelor's and also master's for the teacher education programs. And also, what tests are required? Is there a minimum SAT score? How about the GRE? Another question to ask, will the SAT waive my language requirement? In other words, if I score a certain score on the SAT, do I still need to take the IELTS and TOEFL? Usually the answer is no. If, like, for instance, at YSU, if you have a 1100 on the SAT, then we will waive the language requirement. You've effectively satisfied it by the SAT. Are there any special requirements for education students? It's a discipline-specific thing. That's what you would want to know. Some universities, and I would ask this, if you're going to study at a bachelor's degree program in a teacher licensure program, some universities will actually prohibit you from going on and getting the teaching credential, the license, and so that will affect your options for OPT, obviously. Will the university offer a pre-evaluation of my credentials? The answer at Youngstown State is absolutely. If you send us an email, attach your credentials, we can give you an unofficial evaluation. Yes, your application looks good, or here's what you still need. And we would also typically give you an unofficial scholarship offer as an estimate. How long does an evaluation take? I will say this, the undergraduate admission, it's typically much faster than graduate admission, just because the undergraduate admission office is one office. The graduate admissions has to deal with like 3 different offices when it comes to international students. The international office, the graduate school, plus the department. And it just takes some time. So typically, once the file is complete at the graduate level, within 1 month, then the admissions process can be completed. The undergraduate file, once that is complete, it can happen in a matter of days, 3-4 days. So what happens once I'm admitted? I have a scholarship offer that I like. What's next? Well, first you're going to order your I-20. Your I-20 is going to list estimated yearly cost for 1 year of study. You're going to have to prepare your finances, and you're going to have to show that to us first. And then we will email you, right now we will email the I-20 actually. We don't have to ship it. In a normal time, we would actually have to send that out in physical mail. And then once you receive the I-20 and your admissions letter, then it's all about preparation for your visa interview. And I would refer you to EducationUSA to help with that. They have helped many of our current students over the years. And I think that they can help you think clearly about, how to tell your story in the visa interview, whether you have 2 or 3 minutes or 5 or 6 or 10 minutes. So in front of the visa officer. The last thing I want to add in this slide is that you also, about scholarships, you want to ask about if there are assistantships available for master's programs. Some schools have assistantships available. And it's always good to know, if there's an option something you can apply for, then apply for it. You know, we have assistantships available for our counseling program at the master's level. And so we have specifically like a higher education counseling program, and you know, they value a diversity of students in there. So often an international student will be successful in getting a fully funded assistantship, research assistantship for that program. So these are questions I would ask. And then finally, it's going to come down to any of our programs, and most programs nationwide, you're going to have to write an essay to get into an education program. At the bachelor's level, or at the master's level, or the PhD certainly, you're going to want to know who your audience is. Who's going to read the essay? Is it going to be a department chair? Like what I've observed, that's typical at the bachelor's level, or an admissions officer, also typical at the bachelor's level. Is there going to be a committee, which is typical of graduate school? You know, for instance, how we make decisions about assistantships is that when people apply for the graduate assistantships, there's a whole committee, and 6 or 7 people are going to sit around, and you know, they're all going to like look at your papers and handle them and talk about you. And so if you know who you're writing for, it's easier to know what to write. But in general, for a college of education, they're going to want you to tell your story about where you came from, where you are now, and how Youngstown State or Lehigh or the University of South Florida or wherever you're going to go is going to help project you into your future to do something really great and life-changing. Because life is very short, as we've seen, and life is so short that we don't want to waste any time not doing something that absolutely changes the world for us and for those around us. So thank you for listening, and I am happy to stay around afterwards to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mayers. It was great information that you have shared, and we have Dr. Elizabeth with us from the University of South Florida. So Elizabeth, I would request you to share your screen, and you can continue with your presentation. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the honor of your time this morning. I'm here to talk with you about thinking about teaching and moving into leading. And I think one of the things that people think about when they start thinking about the profession of education, often they think you become a teacher and you go into a classroom, and that's the end of your professional development, that you get this classroom and that's the end of the story. But very often, that's the beginning of the journey. So much more can happen to you after you become an educator. And while I certainly believe that most educators find the profession stimulating and fulfilling being in that classroom, they look for ways throughout their career to continue to grow. And I'm here to share with you today ways that you can continue to grow once you get into the profession. So I want to share with you several of those growth opportunities so that you can consider, once you get into the profession, where can you go from there? Because as the session is titled, this is something that you can think about as a growth trajectory into continued leadership. So one of the ways that you can continue your development in the field of education is as a reading coach. And many folks who become, for instance, elementary education teachers, for instance, in the state of Florida and likely most other states, you have to take a lot of courses in literacy. So all of us, whether we teach elementary students or even further along in our careers, students at the older grades, we have to learn how to support people in acquiring reading skills. certainly at the younger levels, we need to know a lot more about how people develop the skill of reading. But it's much more than reading. Today's teachers are learning more about how to measure people's literacy development, but they're also learning how to integrate different kinds of media into how people are using language, and studying how students get excited about print media and language use, and using writing to develop their reading and speaking skills. And there's a professional growth here that can occur often at the school district level or in the school itself. Is called a reading coach. And this may have different names in different school districts, or even around the world. It may have different names in the profession. But what happens at the graduate level is folks go back to college at the graduate level, often at the master's degree level, and they get degrees in what's called reading education or literacy studies, and they become a reading or literacy coach. And this often means that as they get this coursework, they're working in schools, studying, thinking about their practice, and then hopefully going back to their district after they've completed the degree, and they're working with the teachers in their school to think through what other kinds of supports can I help you with as a reading coach to help the learners in your classrooms continue to flourish and blossom. So they become a leader in their schools based on their knowledge gained through a graduate program. So this is an area of expertise that these folks have cultivated through continued study at the graduate level. A similar area of study is in exceptional student education. And this is a broad term because in some areas of the country, we have this actually distinguished in two different ways. Many of us are familiar with the field of special education, where we're supporting students who have disabilities. And so in our undergraduate programs, many of us in the States are learning, regardless of what our intended degree is, to support students with disabilities, mild disabilities, in the general ed classroom. And then some of us at the undergraduate level are deciding to specialize in working with students with more severe disabilities that we may serve in special pull-out classrooms, or on occasion come and work one-on-one in a general education setting with a student. But people who realize through their first few years of teaching, hey, I really like this study of working more closely and understanding the needs of students with disabilities, I'd like to go on and continue to cultivate my professionalism in this area. They may go back and seek a professional degree in this area. And so they may seek a master's degree or a specialist degree, or even further, a doctoral degree in special education. There's another field of exceptional student education that is also within this umbrella area, and that is gifted education. So gifted education also serves students who have needs that are not met by the general curriculum. Students who have needs that require something extra because their skills are above and beyond what is met by the typical curriculum. So some students come to the classroom already knowing what's being taught. And so those teachers figure out really quickly, boy, whatever I'm getting ready to teach, this student already knows what I'm getting ready to teach. What do I do with these people? Those teachers often have a yearning to understand, how do I support students who are gifted and talented? And those folks are the ones who often come and seek things like a graduate certificate, which is not a full master's degree, but like a partial master's degree in gifted education, or a full master's degree in gifted education, or at some institutions, advanced degrees beyond a master's degree in gifted education. And so both degrees in special education or gifted education are housed under what is an umbrella term known as exceptional student education. And in many institutions, these are housed in the same program or in the same department because, again, they're serving students with needs that are beyond the typical curriculum. They're serving students who have needs that are outside the norm. So this happens to be a very high demand area in most states throughout at least the United States, and I would venture to guess around the world. I can tell you that at USF, we draw a large international audience to our university because throughout the world, there's a great need to understand how to support particularly students with disabilities. And we try to support people in understanding what the techniques are, what the dispositions are, and how we can support educators and communities in supporting learners as they develop. So that's another option for teachers as they progress in their development and sharpen their skills. Like other places in the world, as we're seeing families move, as we're seeing the world change and evolve, we're seeing different languages move around, even within our own countries. And certainly this has been the case in the United States for quite some time. And it's never been more so than right now. Living in the state of Florida, but not Florida alone. I'm sure our other speakers today can tell you in their homes and in their cities, likely hundreds of languages are spoken in the public schools and even the private schools where they live. So this is not unique to the state of Florida. There are, in the school districts near where I live, over 200, sometimes over 300 languages spoken in the school districts where we are. So we don't prepare teachers to teach every one of those hundreds of languages, but we prepare teachers who are specialists in working with students who are trying to learn the English language. And we prepare them in understanding how to work with learners who are trying to transition as they learn English. And just like language skills and reading skills and special education teachers, every teacher in the state of Florida does have to take some initial preparation coursework in English speaking for learners of other languages. But there are a core group of people who get really excited about this whole notion of how do I support people who are coming here and learning about another language? What can I do to support them? And these people often want to progress on to a graduate degree. And we have those here and they are offered throughout the country. And they're, I think, one of the richest things about some of the degrees here in the United States. We have folks who really have studied how special it is that students are able to develop multiple languages. And for our guests here today who are not living in the United States, you all know very well the value of speaking multiple languages. And I think what the United States has been slower to recognize and value is how critical this is for cognitive development. Some of the greatest thinkers in the world are people who have developed at a very early age multiple language capacities. And so I think we're starting to recognize that and tap into that in this country. And I think if we can embrace it and we can harness that, maybe we're going to see even more creative things take off. But teachers, teaching English speakers of other languages is one of those fields that, just like special education and literacy education, is a very hot commodity, especially as we see in this country so much diversity of language abounding. So this is yet another area where people are choosing to continue their professional growth. Within the last several years, because of some social issues in this country, we've seen the field of school psychology also take a tremendous growth interest at the professional level. So school psychology is not something folks can major in at the undergraduate level. And you don't have to be a teacher to go into the field of school psychology. Folks can major in another field at the undergraduate level. Oftentimes, people major in something like psychology at the undergraduate level, and then they can go and apply directly to a school psychology program to get into their master's and then progress to their ed specialist and then their PhD program if they desire. And school psychologists, again, are a critical profession in our public school and private school sector here in the United States, and I would venture elsewhere as well. I would imagine, because we're all touched so much these days by COVID, all of our students are experiencing schools right now as they never have before. And while our youth are very adaptable and they're able to be resilient and manage, we can't kid ourselves that this whole period for many children has been difficult. This is where our school psychologists and often our school counselors, which I'll talk about shortly, are critical personnel meeting the social and emotional needs of our children. And school psychologists play a critical role in helping schools anticipate, recognize, and support students, not only out of the classroom, but even in the classroom. So they can work with classroom teachers to come up with in-classroom practices that can help support students. And they can help them think through, even in virtual environments, what's going to work for my student. They're not also limited to social and emotional concerns, but these are also folks that help think through cognitive planning in terms of tiered levels of support for students' development. So they are also specialists in the areas of reading. They're specialists in the areas of behavior. So these folks bring a wide array of skills to the table. And so they're a high demand area in this country as well. And I think we have another guest here today who's going to be able to speak a little bit more specifically about this if they haven't already. Another high demand area that one can really develop a fine graduate level specialization in, that, as you can tell during these times here during COVID, is in great demand, is learning design and technology. We are now seeing, as many of us are, well, here we're joining you here today, thanks to learning design and technology. But many of our schools, at least in the United States, and I would venture to guess where you're joining us, have moved to what has become largely a learning design and technology educational sphere. And the higher the quality that learning and design environment, my guess is the better the educational outcomes for the students involved. So we have some educators in our K-12 systems who have had prior exposure to this, but largely our K-12 educators have been trained on a brick and mortar school model. I anticipate that after COVID is over, much of what we had previously known about education will likely change. We will likely see school training and the profession shifting so that we're able to be a little bit more nimble, and teachers likely will become much more skilled in providing even more learning opportunities for students that involves more learning design and technology. But the people who are especially skilled in helping us prepare those things are the folks who go through graduate programs, who understand the techniques, the philosophy, the concepts behind how to create those learning environments. And those are offered at the graduate level. Those are not typically things that are offered at the undergraduate level. Those are programs that require a bit more advanced understanding. It helps if you've had an undergraduate degree in education, so that you can then bring that to a master's level program in learning design and technology, because then you have a foundation upon which to further enhance your growth in learning design and technology. And by the way, except for school psychology, all of the degrees I've talked about at the graduate level are those that can be completed part-time while somebody is a full-time teacher. So these are not graduate degrees that you need to say, okay, I got to quit my job and go do this graduate degree, except for the school psychology one. All of these other ones are things you could work on and typically integrate your classroom practice so that you're learning things and trying them out in your classroom while you're learning or while you're earning that graduate degree. So this is a wonderful way to conceptualize your continued professional growth throughout your career. And for those who progress in the education field and see themselves as someone who really enjoys cultivating the group and challenging people to come together toward a common mission, and seeing themselves as someone who wants to help bring out the best in the group and meet the district's missions, and deal with the public and deal with some of the sticky issues that come up in education. And there are those of you out there. I mean, this is a special calling. You folks are destined for educational administration, and thank goodness for you. This is a very unique occupation. It's one that involves likely some really finely tuned interpersonal skills, some excellent communication skills. You've got to appreciate listening to others and sometimes giving feedback that is both positive and constructive, but is also involving hearing things from the public that you may not always want to hear. But at the same time, juggling multiple demands, budgets, personnel, students, and then when you least expect it, a crisis. So educational administration at our university is offered at multiple levels. We offer a graduate degree, a master's degree in educational administration for people who are practicing. So they're already teachers and they want to progress toward becoming an educational administrator. And then for folks that already have a master's degree in educational administration, they can choose to progress further and pursue a PhD or an educational doctorate in educational administration. So there are a variety of pathways depending on what calls you. So I would say that depending on what your interests are, and I guess this is my greatest recommendation to you as you think about your professional growth in the education field, is think about what your passion is. Think about what you enjoy doing. And this comes down to who you are right now. And as you enter the profession and you experience the profession, what do you enjoy about it? What do you like doing? And where is that calling you to lean forward? Follow that calling and stay with what you enjoy. And that will reinforce your own leadership development and provide you with joy in doing it. And at the end of the day, I think that is the greatest fulfillment that you can get out of a career and out of leadership in the education profession, for it to be fulfilling to you and for you to be able to give back to others. So that is the extent of what I had hoped to share with you today. And as Nathan said, I'm happy to stick around afterwards as well and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elizabeth. It was wonderful information. I'm sure previously we had an impression that education means only the teaching, right? But then there are so many various options that nowadays a student can have in terms of an education as a major. So thank you so much for that. And we have with us Aruna Dasgupta. She is from the University of South Florida, and she is the country advisor from India. So I would like to welcome Arunaji you to this session. Thank you so much for joining in. Would you like to say some words, Arunaji? Over to you.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm not very sure if I'm visible right now. I hope you all can hear me. Janet,
Yes,
am I?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. So, well, as Janet said, I'm Aruna Dasgupta. I'm the country advisor for the University of South Florida in India. I first want to really thank EducationUSA for putting their focus on programs beyond engineering and business, because there are some amazing courses, lots of courses, scores of courses which students don't know about. And thank you so much for putting your camera on this. Now, I just want to take a couple of minutes to say that as you make your plans, or as if for those of you who are teachers at colleges of education, as you know, your students make plans, I'm sure you will have questions, some things that will need clarity, and some follow-up questions to these three wonderful presentations. So just want to tell you that a lot of universities do have offices in India that you can turn to. One of your best resources, of course, is EducationUSA, and they will be able to also give you this information. So, for example, at USF, we've had an office in India for the last 10 years. We have a team of 3, and we are there to guide you, to answer your questions, to connect you sometimes to faculty, to alumni, to current students, so that you can get authentic information. So in my chat box, I'm just going to put my contact details and that of our recruitment head in India, who also gives some wonderful visa guidance. So that's really all I want to say. And thank you so much once again, EducationUSA.
Thank you so much, Arunaji. And for all the attendees, for a reference, you can see our email IDs right in front of your screen. So if you have further questions to the panelists, you can reach out to them or on their email IDs. I'm Janet Turner. My email ID is right there. I'm from the EducationUSA Ahmedabad Center. So if you have queries and questions about the US application processes, do reach out to the nearest EducationUSA Center too. And without wasting further more time, we would now go to take the questions from the attendee. So the first question is for Susan. Susan, the question for you is, are there any special teacher experience which is a prerequisite or required for joining the special teachers or training courses at the master's level in the US?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question for me, please?
Sure. The question is that, are there any special teaching experiences required, or are there any prerequisites having a background in teaching for students to join in a training related program in the US at the master's level?
That's a good question. Typically, people do come with some kind of teaching experience for the masters when they come to do masters in special education. But we've also seen people change careers. So for example, switching from counseling to special education. So there are multiple pathways, but if the person has questions about a specific programs may vary in terms of what they expect, that to reach out to the admissions information. You can easily get information through the web from specific programs, and people would be happy to answer questions like that.
Right. Thank you. Would the other panelists would like to add something to it?
Yeah, I'll say that at YSU, typically they look for 2 years of teaching experience to get you into a master's program. So it's unusual that someone would apply for a master's program and be successful if they didn't have 2 years of teaching. Like if they were, we've had people apply out of, out of areas, they were like surgeons in Bangladesh, and they want to come for a master's of education. It doesn't make any sense. And if you're going to do something like that, you better be very explicit about what you're doing and why.
Right. Elizabeth, something to add to it?
I would agree. I think we have found that people who have a foundation upon which to build have a greater success. So it's consistent with what both Susan and Nathan have said here. Without a foundation, you're really struggling with how to make sense of what you're learning. And so that's why programs at the master's degree level do ask for prior experience. They want you to be successful. So it's a matter of understanding what you're getting into in order to move on from there. If I can also add, at least in the state of Florida, I can speak for our endorsement in gifted education. It's an add-on endorsement. So you cannot add it on to your existing state licensure unless you have the existing state license. So people will often come and say, well, can I get the endorsement? And I'll have to say, well, do you already have the endorsement? And they'll say, well, no, I'm not an educator. Well, you can't get the endorsement. Now, we actually have another pathway for people who are interested in gifted education because they're a parent of a child who's gifted. We have a lot of people who are fascinated with gifted education for personal reasons. And so we actually have a way into the field that doesn't involve becoming a credentialed educator. So yes, you can still come and learn about the field with us, but we're not going to credential you and sign off that you're ready to go teach in the field, but we'll invite you to come learn with us and provide you some alternate learning experiences that are different from what we are going to provide to our educational folks that are in our programs.
Right. Thank you. The next question is, can a master's degree, a master's in education, do any of your university offer it online, or they are all on-campus programs?
I can speak for our USF. Most of our master's degree programs.
We'll start with Nathan.
I'm sorry. Most of our master's degree programs in education are online. I suspect that's the case nationwide, just because typically they enroll classroom teachers who are busy and in far-flung corners of the state, and to make those accessible. So yeah, our education program is online, and for the completely online program, actually there's a differential in tuition, so it's much cheaper actually to pursue education and master's online.
Right. Elizabeth, would you like to add something to it about the programs at your university? Are they online or off campus?
Sure. Our master's degree programs most of them are fully online. I think all the ones that I described today are online. There is no difference in tuition for us, but our state tuition, because we're a public university, is fairly low. It's one of the lowest in the entire country. So it's not appreciably, it's not at all different from what the face-to-face tuition is.
Right. Susan?
At Lehigh, some of our programs are online, but not all of them. So, for example, we do have a school counseling program that is primarily online with some study on site, both elsewhere and in the States. So for the most part, our programs are on-site programs.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for the information. The next question is, what are the various OPT or CPT opportunities that the students who are pursuing an education major can opt for? If you can just share some examples from your university, from your students who have opted with some opportunities in this field.
I can share a few, certainly. Again, you'll have a basic choice once you graduate. If you have if you're graduating with an education degree in a STEM field, you'll have that STEM OPT possibility of 3 years post-graduation work. So we have graduated people with bachelor's degree in chemistry who have gone on to teach in New York City public schools under an emergency license. And so, you know, certainly that's possible. There are certainly probably other districts that will hire you for 1 year on an OPT, you know, in a non-STEM field. Primarily, most of our OPT, you know, work experience comes from graduates of our counseling program. And so they're often getting, you know, OPT assignments as, you know, resident directors or, you know, so because their career track is higher education counseling, or, you know, some entry-level staff in a different kind of a university department.
Right. Susan, would you like to add something to it?
Sure. So, I mean, there are many different possibilities. So, just depending on what exactly you're doing. So, I'm just thinking about one of our students, one of our international students, is doing work counseling human trafficking survivors in New York City. I presented an example of one of my students, Madhuri Deshmukh, who's working in a school in Colorado as a school counselor. And one of my doctoral students just graduated from the counseling psychology doctoral program. She's currently working in an independent practice, getting the hours that she needs for licensure in a private practice in Massachusetts. So there are a number of possibilities that students could pursue.
Thank you. Dr. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I know one of our recent special education doctoral students from Saudi Arabia, for instance, just recently took a position in our local school district working in the field of special education. So there are opportunities here domestically for international graduates to work. I would say that because there is demand in these areas, there are opportunities, and especially in these high demand areas like special education.
Right, right. Thank you. The next question is, since I believe that all the education related programs are considered to be a non-STEM programs. The question is, one, are there any STEM programs under the College of Education? And the second question is, if a student wants to pursue a degree program which has the major subject as a STEM subject, will that be considered as a STEM program or not?
So that's a good question. So the example I cited actually was our student graduated not with an education degree, but with a chemistry degree, which is why his certification was an emergency one. I do not know the answer to that question because it's not come up.
We have actually been looking into this because we felt that it wasn't really fair to make this distinction, because the majors that we have in the College of Education are very research oriented. So we've started to look into what it would take to get our designation changed for some of our programs. And so it's not, it depends on this code number. You have to have this code number that's changed. And so it's a big process that you have to go through. We're currently investigating what it would take. And for us, we're looking at schools that have have been able to get a STEM designation to try to make a case. And interestingly, in our Counseling and Human Services program, it looks like we may be able to do it, although it's going to be a process. We're examining it because we want to give our international students the best possible opportunity to spend that time to do that training. But it is a process, and it depends on getting that special designation.
Right. Thank you. Dr. Elizabeth, if you would like to share something about this.
Sure. I've texted our Associate Dean for Graduate Studies right now, just in case she gets back to me while we're still on the air, because I think the responses here thus far show you that there's a common sense response to this, but there's also a very complex response to this. So I think on one hand, it would be easy for us to say, sure, there's degrees we offer at the graduate level, in my case, at the undergraduate, but mostly at the graduate level going forward, in mathematics ed and science ed, and certainly in the and we also offered other degrees in measurement and research at the graduate level, at the master's level, and cybersecurity, a number of degrees. Whether they're classified as STEM degrees or not is the very issue that I understand that you're asking about. I do not have a list in front of me as which are. Fortunately, my Associate Dean did quickly respond to my text, and she's rattling off very quickly. Certainly the Learning Design and Technology degree and the Instructional Technology doctoral degree both qualify. And those are the ones quickly that I can address. And that was one that I had promoted here earlier in our slideshow. And you can think about that learning design and technology career choice as one that goes a couple different ways. In our schools here in the States anyway, one can get that degree and go into the schools and teach students in computer classes. So there are computers, there's coding, there's all kinds of learning and design fields that are evolving in schools, because there's a recognition that our students in K-12 education need the opportunity to expand their own development in this area. But we also need folks who have this expertise to teach teachers in schools and to work in district jobs. So it's not necessarily only limited to teaching children. It's also professional development and school level leadership. So there's a whole host of opportunities in the learning design and technology area that I think is one of the hottest areas for potential growth in the field of education going forward. And I would imagine my co-speakers here today would likely agree that that's going to be a hot ticket going forward.
Right. Thank you. There are a couple of questions which I'm merging them because they are all related to the admission requirements. So putting it together, I would like to ask all of you, respective with your university requirements, that what are the TOEFL and GRE requirements to get into the master's program at your universities? Are there any waivers possible? Because most of the students who are applying from India would definitely have, having an Indian background and not having English as their native language. So are there any waivers available for them for TOEFL or IELTS? And are there any GRE waivers available? And how all these requirements have affected, have been affected by the COVID situation? So what are the things that you are looking for the next year admissions? So if you can just quickly say about these points, keeping the Indian students in mind. I think we'll start with, yes, please.
So very quickly, at the bachelor's level, there is as I mentioned, there is a exclusion. If you have an SAT of 1100 or higher, then we will waive the TOEFL IELTS. At the graduate level, unfortunately, they still require a TOEFL IELTS of 6.5. IELTS is 6.5, TOEFL is 79 or higher. in addition to the GRE, and it doesn't matter what your GRE is, unfortunately, and that's the way it is. The only other exclusion would be, of course, as I think Susan mentioned earlier, if you graduated from a high school in a country with the median an official language of English, you know, like we graduated from high school in Singapore, or university in Singapore, university in Canada, University of Ireland, then we would waive the TOEFL IELTS requirement.
Does that mean that if a student has pursued his bachelor's level education from an Indian university having English as a mode of language, will you still offer them the waiver?
So if they graduated from an Indian university, they will still require proof of English proficiency.
Okay, okay, yeah. Susan, over to you.
Yeah, so for the masters, for either for a master's or a PhD, it would be required to have the TOEFL unless they have graduated from a US-based institution. Now, that said, we do at Lehigh have a program where students can enter provisionally and do intensive English language study through a program that we have, and they will be taking courses in the program sort of at a slower level to allow time for the English language study. And we have had some students who've successfully gone through that program and graduated with the master's when the TOEFL wasn't quite what it needed to be immediately admitted into the program. So that is a way that we have had students build their English language proficiency while they're studying. So that is a possibility, but typically we require a TOEFL of a total score of 93, and all the information is required, like all the requirements are posted on the website, so it's easy to learn about those. But in terms of the GRE, this year, because of COVID, we are waiving our GRE. The GREs are not required at Lehigh for master's study, only required for PhD study, but other institutions do require it for master's study. But we are currently waiving the GRE for all of our programs for this year because of COVID.
Right, thank you. Dr. Elizabeth?
Yes, we do still require the TOEFL for all of our graduate degrees for anyone that is coming from a country where English is not the native language or the home language. We also have various policies on the GRE. They're specific to various programs. So some programs do not require the GRE while other programs do. So it just depends on the program that you're applying to in our college. Each program makes its own determination, and those admissions requirements are posted on our application information pages on our website.
If I could,
sure.
One quick thing.
After Nathan, yeah, Nathan, please go ahead.
No, I just wanted to mention very quickly, Duolingo is a great option if the university accepts it. We've recently begun accepting that as proof of language proficiency, and it's a lot less expensive to do. You don't have to leave your house to do it. It's a great COVID-friendly option, $50, yes. And you can just do that right from your house and submit your English proficiency there.
Right, thank you. Yes, Arunaji.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that yes, we do accept Duolingo too, apart from TOEFL and IELTS. And for GRE, currently most departments have decided to waive it because they know it's not possible to do it in a lot of countries. So they're either waiving it or they're saying, okay, we'll accept a delayed submission. So you'll need to really check with every department and find out. But yeah, there is a lot of flexibility currently about the GRE or GMAT. Yeah, that's it.
Right. I think you said it right, that it's better to reach out to the department to know the exact requirements and what are the actions that they are taking under this current situation. The next question, follow-up question about GRE is, if a student wants to pursue a psychology program, does he or she need to take the subject GRE test? Anyone would like to take that up?
We do not require a subject GRE test at Lehigh.
Great. Yes, Nathan?
Same, and I'm not aware of any university who does.
Okay. Is there a change with USF, Dr. Elizabeth?
I couldn't speak to that. I would recommend the students check our website for that specific requirements, but I would guess that Nathan and Susan's practices are probably reflective of what we require here.
Right. Thank you. I think we are on the last question now, which is that if a student from India wants to become a high school teacher in the US, how easy or how difficult it is to become a licensed or qualified high school teacher? And are there any license exams that they have to pursue? Also, he wants to know that there are different exams for different states. Is that true? Who would like to take that first? Susan?
Well, the laws vary, completely vary by state. And so it really depends on which state. And some states will not certify teachers who are not US citizens, but other states will. And so it's really important to know what the laws are in that state, and a good resource is to talk to someone at the program that you're thinking about going to. So Pennsylvania, for example, it has a law which we don't agree with, and that we advocate against, which is that they will not certify non-US citizens as teachers. But we have our students who have come through and gotten degrees that qualify them to be educators. We have helped them find positions in other states so that they could move forward with their career.
Right.
So I agree with what Susan said. The same thing in Ohio. We have blocked the pathway for certification for students on F1 visas. So for a bachelor student or master's student, there's typically a capstone student teaching internship for bachelors, and then a sort of capstone project for the masters. And those look very much different for international students, both of those experiences, than they would for domestic students. Still meaningful, but there's no pathway to a Ohio teaching certificate. I mean, I think private schools are can be a good option. I think charter schools can be a good option sometimes. We have had students come through our program and get certified, but they haven't done so on an F1 visa. They've been on various different kinds of visa statuses, international students.
Right. And what about the Florida state, Dr. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything different to add than what we've already heard.
Okay. And Nathan and Susan, you said that, different states have different laws. Are there any ways to find out that what state follows what laws? Are there any resources that the student can look at?
Yeah, every state is going to have a governmental website. So you would want to find a website for that, the Department of Education for that state, and that website will have a .gov finish on at the end of that website, and the laws are typically posted online through the Pennsylvania, or for us like Pennsylvania Department of Education, but every Department of Education has a governmental website that will have all the laws and the regulations for that state.
Great. I think that's a very useful information for the students who are looking for these kind of details. I think that brings us to the end of the session. Any last moment feedback that you would like to share with our attendees, all the speakers? We can start with Susan.
Well, I really love teaching in this area because I love seeing our students develop and begin to take roles that are going to make a difference in the world. So I just want to encourage all of the listeners and viewers to to follow their passion, and they're the leaders of tomorrow, and they can make a big difference in the world. So I'm grateful to all of them for what they will do.
I would just like to add that in addition to the job opportunities and professional, I have many personal students, former students who have gone back to India, to Nepal, to Japan, to Korea, Taiwan, to take leadership roles in instruction and in school administration in their own countries. And I think that the value of an American education, it gives you a different look and it gives you a different perspective. And you're going to, when you go into apply for the visa, there you have to demonstrate an intent to return. And though we do have some good OPT opportunities here, that ultimately, hopefully, we can give you something that you can take back with you and that will enrich the rest of your life. So that's valuable.
Agree. Dr. Elizabeth, your comments, please.
I think when you think about your educational career, certainly think of it in terms of a journey that is going to take you many places. And sometimes where you start is not where you finish. And enjoy the journey, enjoy where it takes you. Savor each stop of the journey and be open to seeing where the journey takes you. And as that journey takes you to places you hadn't anticipated, consider what a graduate degree can do to fulfill you on that journey. And consider what a place like USF can offer you. We have many advanced degrees that can help you sharpen your tool set. You'll earn initial skills as you become an initial teacher, but to sharpen your tool set, consider the different ways you can become a specialist within the profession and continue to evolve as a leader and progress to make an even greater difference in your school community.
Absolutely agree with you, Dr. Elizabeth. And that brings us to the end of this session. Before we go, I would like to tell the attendees that our next session is happening on Thursday, October 22nd, and it's going to be on the Create and Communicate programs in film, media, journalism, and more. So do join in for this interesting session on Thursday, same time. And I would like to thank all the speakers for joining us for this session. It was great having all of you. Such a great information that you have all shared with us. And I'm sure that this is going to be very useful for the students who really want to pursue or who are the educators in within. So thank you so much. Have a great day ahead. And for all of the students attending here, good night and have a very bright future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.